Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Amanda Fest podcast, where our intention is simple. It's to inspire and empower our listeners to take aligned action towards their dream lives, whatever that looks like for you. I'm so excited to introduce my dear friend, Megan. She met her now fiance, Freddie, on her flight from London to Los Angeles. After 2 years of doing long distance, they recently got engaged. Their story went viral on TikTok and Instagram, and even got coverage in People magazine. So today's topic is all about shooting your shot, saying yes to opportunity, intentionality, and commitment in relationships. Before we dive into this juicy conversation, just want to take a moment for us all to get present. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, if you have the opportunity to close your eyes, I invite you to do that. And just focus on your breath for a moment. Notice it going in and out. And I want you to start thinking about what you would like to call in, something that you really are desiring. And with every inhale, I want you to call that thing in. And with every exhale, I want you to think of something that you want to let go of. Maybe something that no longer serves you. Maybe it was a moment of frustration. Just let it go with the exhale. So we're going to do a couple breaths in and out with our intention on the inhale and release on the exhale. Nice deep breath in and out. Another nice deep breath in. Out. One more, and on this last exhale, you feel good to make some noise, shake it out. I invite you to do that. So nice deep breath in and out. Let it go. Get present. Welcome to your body. Welcome to Amanda Fest, and welcome, Megan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so excited for you to be here. I would love to take a couple moments to hear a little bit about your journey, of who you are and where you are now, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, so my name is Megan. I'm originally from Los Angeles, have been a California native my whole life. Recently moved to New York for business school. So with getting my MBA at NYU, and have shared, I met my fiance on an airplane 2.5 years ago. And so have been living through the journey of long distance relationships, now being engaged and settling down again.
So crazy also. So Megan and I met through our friend Nicole, who actually I've had on the podcast. My friend Nicole is the wild woman that quit her job, packed everything up, and moved to Brazil to pursue professional surfing. So that's our connection, if that says anything about our little girl group. We had this moment. There was like this moment in time where we had this little like surf girl gang in LA that was, I don't know how I was a part of it.
You made it out. You got in the water. That's all that matters. That's half the battle.
I was with this group of badass surfing chicks, and I am a baby surfer, and I was like, I'm just gonna paddle out and look at the cute boys.
Which
But
worked. It worked out.
it was great, but that's how we initially met. And I just really distinctly remember it was like, I think at that point, that was right after Nicole had broken up with her ex-boyfriend. And so I think most of us were single gals, labbing, chatting about boys, our dating life, and And I remember us sitting over breakfast after surfing one day, and you were talking all about your dating life. And then one of the next times you were talking about how you were applying to grad school, and then cut to, you're in New York, and then cut to, I'm like, boyfriend, what's going on?
I feel
Like
like
that escalated so quickly.
you were such a fan, though. I remember when I told you, you're like, what? I need the details. And you were like checking in after it happened. You're like, is it still going? Like, how are you guys doing? I just remember being like, oh my God, she's rooting for me.
Oh my God. Yeah, but I feel like that's the ultimate girl fantasy. Anytime you walk onto a plane, you're like, I just hope that I'm going to be sat next to the love of my life, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. And then you're like, no, but for real, I met my fiance on a plane.
I feel like most of us are like, it doesn't even have to be the love of my life. Just give me someone cute. Give me something fun. I'm sure you've seen the memes that are like the sexual tension between me and the only other person my age on the flight. And then that never actually happens. Like, I fly back and forth from LA to Texas to see my family. I've been on so many flights, and that never happened until it did. So
So
it's
funny.
crazy.
I also love the fact that you documented absolutely everything, like every single moment. You're just like cute guy on the plane. Oh my god! If you guys haven't seen her TikTok yet, where she does the breakdown, what is it in 4 or 5 parts?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
like I have my video that went viral and then did like a 6-part follow-up because so many people had questions and wanted to know more. So,
So what types of things are people asking you? The whole intention of this podcast is to inspire and empower people to take aligned action. What are the pieces that people are just dying to know, and how can we share that wisdom with them?
I think the biggest questions we are getting is who's moving where? How did you make this work? How did you even talk to each other? How did you move seats? It's all of the logistical questions of like, how does this actually work? Which
Yeah.
I guess I should backtrack. After we met and started dating and realized we really like each other, we're both like, we're not doing long distance. Long distance is stupid. We're not getting involved in that. So I understand why people have these questions of the logistics because it just seems so far fetched to be in a relationship with someone who's living an 11-hour flight, 8-hour time difference, 5,000 miles away. There's a lot of question
Yeah.
marks that you need to work through. But what has been really cool is I've actually gotten quite a few people in my DMs looking for relationship advice. They're doing long distance and they're like, how do I know when to have the conversation with that person? I don't feel very qualified, but I'm flattered that people are so inspired by my story that they feel there's something to relate to or learn from. So it's really cool being able to connect with total strangers on the internet and be able to share these little tidbits of their life and my life and how I got through some of those challenges.
So, one of the things that I really love about your story is when you're talking about how you guys got to know each other and you were playing We're Not Really Strangers. Is that what you
Yeah.
guys are doing? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I read some things I was talking about, like ways in which people connect with their partners. And so many people actually don't have deep connections with their partners. They just cohabitate and watch
Yeah.
TV and dissociate. And so the fact that you guys spent your time apart truly getting to know each other. I'd love to know a little bit about whose idea was that? How did it go? How did that compare to previous relationships? Yeah, I'd love to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So we pretty much started FaceTiming early on. So we got off the flight and we were texting just again about the absurdity of what happened. And he was like, I'd love to talk to you on the phone. And I feel like that first conversation opened up the doors to consistent FaceTiming. After you FaceTime for hours and hours on end, you've talked about your day, you've gotten to know each other. You've hit this point of like, where else does the conversation go from here? And I don't remember how early into the relationship, it may have actually been like once we defined the relationship that we were like, okay, we still feel there's a lot to uncover about each other because we can only talk for the 4 hours a day that we have overlapping and really getting to unpack like who we each are. And so I think it was at that point we were like, okay, what can we do that's different? We could like try to watch a movie together, but it was 10 in the morning for me and 6 after work for him. And we're like, I'm not going to watch a movie at 10 in the morning. I can't make dinner while he's making dinner. And I had played We're Not Really Strangers with some friends during the pandemic. And I just found it was such an amazing way to learn about people and unpack sort of these secrets that we all walk and carry with. And they don't even have to be like deep, but just things that you don't get to know from just having basic conversation. And so I think I proposed it. And basically, we would play where I would hold up the card for him to read and then he would answer.
So, for those who don't know, can you describe what the game is?
Yeah, so We're Not Really Strangers. They have a bunch of different variety packs. I feel like I should be a brand ambassador at this point. I am not. But basically, it is a card game that has 3 different stages of questions that start with like reflection, introspection, and then getting to know one another. And you basically work your way through the deck asking these questions that you just like would probably feel a little bit uncomfortable asking straight out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You create this like space of vulnerability. I've played it with strangers. I've played it with people I know, and every time I've played, I've learned something about someone that's totally different and shocking and really exciting. Um, so there's one that's basic. What song do I remind you of? Like, that's not really deep. But then there's other things that are like, tell me about a moment that like changed your life, or what do you love most about me, or what do you like most about? Like really pushes you to answer vulnerably. So we played a lot of that, ultimately to the point where we went through the deck and then I sent him another version of the deck. We did the expansion pack. And then I bought another version of the deck. And we basically played this. And really spent the first 3 months of talking, just getting to know one another. And I felt like by the time I flew to London to see him again, we knew everything about each other. There were no secrets. There was nothing to hide. We knew who each other were, like at our true core.
So I know it's on your TikTok, but can you give the most abridged version possible of what happened, how you guys met, and if someone hasn't seen any of your stuff, what the story is?
Yeah. So my favorite movie pitch line is how I met my now fiance, where we started the plane not sitting next to each other and ended the flight sitting next to each other. But it was a long haul flight from LA to London. We were sitting in the same row. We got to chatting. About 2.5 hours later, a phone was passed over to my tray table and it said, "Have you got a boyfriend?" And I was like, "No." And we passed notes and basically came to the conclusion like we had such a great conversation. We wanted to be sitting next to each other. So I woke the girl up in the middle and I was like, "I'm going to go to the back of the plane. When I'm there, you can swap with her. I don't want to both be breathing down her neck. This is so awkward." So I went and hung out at the back of the plane, waited for him to ask her. I was like, "I don't know if he needs 5 minutes, 5 hours." And I came back and Mr. 6'2" was sitting in the middle seat. And we talked for like the next 4 hours of the flight. And basically, as like the flight was ending, he looked, "That is sad. I'm probably not going to see you again." And I was like, "Probably not." I walked off of the plane that day being like, "That was so fun. What an experience. I'm so glad I get to that story." But that conversation birthed and died on that plane. That was the end of it. And we basically spent the next weeks talking nonstop. And he was, "I think you have to come visit." So he was like, "Whatever it costs, I will split it with you. Come visit me in London. You can hang out here." So I booked a flight. So about 3 months later, I then flew out to see him for the first time. And that was where we actually, okay, really like each other. Are we just going to keep talking? Or are we going to make this serious? So that is my like abridged of like how we got to where we are today. But
And
happened
in
to
the midst,
anything else?
okay, so then in the midst of all of this, though, you had been living in LA your whole life, and then you had just moved to New York for grad school. Where in the timeline did grad school
Yeah.
begin? Yeah.
So so yeah, when we met in April, I had known that I was going to be moving to New York later that summer. And I was like, okay, LA to London is 8 hours. New York to London is 5 hours. I think this is a little bit more manageable. I think we can do this. And it wasn't until that summer actually that we decided we were going to make it work. But in the middle of all this, I was like, yeah, I'm not really looking for anything. I'm moving across the country. I'm going to business school. I'm leaving LA for the first time. But it was really fun chatting and getting to know you. And I'd love to come visit. If that's the only thing that comes out of this, great, because this has been such a moment for me to learn about what I want in a relationship, learn how I want to be treated, the
Mhm.
bar for like how I feel I should be treated in a
Oh my
relationship, things
God.
that like just open my eyes. And so it was
Ah,
a really interesting time in my life to be like having this big experience.
it's so funny that you say that. So I keep saying right now, like, because right now I'm looking for partnership, right? Like I feel really, really ready to meet my person. But now what's happening is I keep meeting these men and they come into my life and I have this mentality where I'm like, you don't need to be the guy, right? You don't have to be him. And each guy that's coming into my life, I'm like, thank you for showing me that what I'm looking for exists. And each one, there's something different, right? Whether it's the way that they communicate, the way that they text, the way that they compliment me, or the way that they show up for me, or the way that they think, or the way that they live. Each person that's coming into my life now, I'm looking at them like this beautiful lesson of thank you for showing me that what I'm desiring exists. Thank you.
It's so crazy. And during my dating days, I wouldn't have had that realization. It wasn't until I actually met Freddie that I was able to be like, wow, if this never went anywhere, I would still feel so grateful because I learned so much from this. And it's funny, now I can actually look back at all of those relationships and situationships and dates and all the other things that came in between and be like, thank you for what that taught me. Thank you for what
Yeah,
that showed me. There is no resentment or animosity towards anyone in my life who I've had a relationship with because it's taught me something and made me who I am today. And I don't think I would be here and be in this relationship without all of those experiences.
totally. And it's interesting too, because they always say you meet the person when you're not looking.
Yeah.
I'm assuming at this exact juncture in your life, you're like, I'm about to start grad school. I'm starting a whole new life. You're not like, let me get a boyfriend. Like,
I can tell you like the exact date. Like I went on my last date and it was a good date, but I was like, I'm at this point where I'm so fulfilled in my life. I've got this amazing group of girls in LA. It was the surf crew. I feel so supported and loved and excited. I know I'm going to business school. Again, it was in January, so I didn't know where I was going, but I was like, I don't need anyone in my life. Like the partner will find me when I'm ready. But I remember I had this whole realization and I called a few friends. I was like, I'm deleting all the apps. I'm done dating. I am so content with where I am today. And that was
Yes.
January. And then I did February, March, did all my grad school interviews, and I met him April. And like I said, I was not looking, I was not trying to get into a relationship with a man thousands of miles away. That was not the ideal scenario here. But it worked out. And again,
But remaining open, though, I think that's a really big piece of it. And if we're going to tie this into takeaways that people can take from your story, is I think that it's a part of it definitely is feeling, not desiring and seeking somebody because you think that they're going to fulfill something that's missing in your life, but and feeling that fulfillment within your own self, within your own life, while also remaining open. I think if you had gone into that situation, you're like, I'm not looking for anyone, and this beautiful man leaned in, you're like, no, thank you. Like the fact that you still had that element of openness, and even despite the obvious obstacles in front of you, right, that you were able to, I'm curious, was there a moment within you where, or how early on were you guys having the conversations of what you were looking for, not necessarily with each other, but what you were looking for in general? Did that happen fairly
that
early
happened on the plane. We had gotten into a conversation about past relationships. I had been about a year and a half out of a very long relationship, had been living with my ex. He had gotten out of a relationship about 3 months before that. And they were both long-term serious relationships. And so that's what started this conversation. We dove into love languages, past relationships. And we even talked about on the plane, we weren't talking about each other, but I was like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I think I want. And he was like, yeah, I'm not ready to date. I'm still like figuring things out, but these are the things I want. So by the time it was like us dating each other, we already knew what the other person had wanted. It was interesting because we still got to find those things along the way too. And all of that was because like all we could do was talk to each other. There was no opportunity to be like, okay, let's play some games. We're going to go on a date and then I'm going to wait 4 days to text him. It was like, if I didn't text him, I wasn't going to hear from him because he was in London going to bed.
So let me ask you something. For me, I realized that the physical element for me was super distracting in my dating life early on. I think that for me, because and I don't know what your love languages are, but mine definitely is touch. Like I'm a very physically affectionate person, not even in just a sexual way, like even in a platonic way. I like hug and kiss and mush and kiss my friends. Like I'm touchy feely. That's just how I am. But I think that took away from my ability to genuinely get to know people because I was so quick to want to be physically close that I was like bypassing thinking about, do I even like this person? Is this person even a good fit for me? And so I imagine having that forced separation and lack of ability to be physically close probably forced you to be like, this is either like an intellectually stimulating connection or not.
I laughed as you were sharing that because we even talked about our love languages on the plane. That is how deep this conversation got. And I think what was so interesting is I thought my love language was words of affirmation. And so similar to you, as I was dating, I felt like I was chasing guys who would give me words of affirmation, but that meant nothing. A text means nothing until they're showing up, until they're actually committing, following through on a plan, not bailing on a date. And here I was thinking that's what it was. And what I realized through getting to know Freddie, dating Freddie, and now being engaged is it was never words of affirmation. It was actually acts of service. And so it was really interesting to have this like experience of learning that because I spent 28 years being like, I love words of affirmation. That is how I feel loved.
I wonder too if your initial love language comes out of what you were lacking as a kid.
A kid in the past relationship, maybe.
Like I'm just thinking about that because I know that I always wanted to like cuddle and my mom was not physical at all. And so I would always be like, no, don't go over there. I don't want to cuddle you. And so in relationship, I'm like, just hold me.
That is a great question for my undergraduate degree that I no longer use. But it is interesting. Like, yeah. I feel like my parents used words of affirmation. They were very clear with how they cared about me, and even with my friends, I never cared as much. It was in my relationships, which is really interesting. But I think I've also realized that you really don't have to have one love language. There's definitely things in a relationship
Totally.
you can want more. But the reality is we all want acts of service. We all want to be told we're loved. We all want to feel we're loved. We want to be like with gifts and touch. We all want all of these things. Just at the end of the day, like maybe one changes depending on your mood or the person you're with.
What did it feel like when so like you're like chatting, you're talking, you're FaceTiming, you're getting to know each other on this super deep level. And then I also can't believe you booked the flight 3 months in advance, just knowing that you're still going to be in communication.
I think
Did
we
you book
just like both.
was it refundable?
I don't remember. I do not remember. Probably not because it was so expensive to fly that summer. We booked it in May and I was flying in July. But I think we both were like, that connection on the plane was so great. Like it had been unlike anything we had both experienced. That if it like faded, it was still a fun story to tell. And like,
Yeah.
I go for 10 days and have a bachelorette style honeymoon. Like I'm not flying in helicopters, dining in private coliseums, but like I'm off traveling the world in London. But I think what you were going to say was like the craziness of seeing each other for the first time after that flight.
Was there any element that like was it comfortable immediately? You guys kissed on the plane, right? So there was already that, which
And,
I
like,
love, by the way.
I know that's a whole nother story, which I'm happy to share that too. But
Yes,
everyone gets
I would.
when I share that bit of the story, everyone's jaw just drops. Like when I'm like, and then we kissed. People are like, you kissed on the plane. I'm like,
You're like, and then we
yeah.
went to the back of the plane. No, just kidding.
I was like, I am not that kind of girl. Not in this stage.
But you're like in my mind.
Oh, there were so many times where we were both like, damn, we wish we could be anywhere but this plane. But we were stuck on a plane for 11 hours. But no, seeing each other that day was crazy. So I landed in the morning and he was like, I don't have a ton of vacations. I want to save them for when you're actually here. So I'm going to finish work that day. I'm going to leave you the keys to my flat. Go take a nap, shower, make yourself at home, and I'll see you when I'm off work. And so I like sat in this man's flat for 6 hours just being like, okay, I've napped, I've showered, now what? Like waiting for him to come home. And I remember I wasn't nervous about anything on that trip except like the moment I was going to see him. And we talked about it. Like I asked him if he was nervous and we were both just, it was the moment of first seeing each other that felt jittery, not scary, right? Like the good anxious. He came home, I had his keys, so I had to let him into his own flat. And I remember just being like, hi. And he was like, hi. And then we hugged. And I was like, you're a lot taller than I remember. But it was because we sat next to each other. We didn't know how tall and short one another were.
That sounds like a scene from The Parent Trap.
A little bit, yeah.
I only have a father and you only have a mother.
And you're short and I'm tall. But yeah, it was like, and we were so excited. I remember we went to dinner that night. So he like came home and he was like, we're just going to run to the pub. He's like, I'm sure you're exhausted. So we went for dinner on the high street in London, which is the main street with all the shops. And we sat there at dinner and we were both like, we just want to hang out. Neither of us could eat. We were so excited. We were like, we just want to hang out and talk and sit on the couch and just chill. We hadn't been able to have that in so long. We were like, we don't need to be sitting across from each other at a restaurant right now. We want that quality, intimate time together. So I think we were at dinner barely. We shared some wings and a cheeseburger and we were like, okay, let's go get into comfy clothes and hang out.
And I saw he like planned all this shit for that trip and it was so well thought out. I'm so curious to hear this story from his POV.
One day we will get him. Maybe one day. I keep telling him, I'm like, when we get a deal big enough, you're going to be out here being like, I'll tell the story. Yeah. But he's shared with me his perspectives too, which is really cool. So I do have a little bit from his POV, but it is funny that I'm not here. Here's the story.
You know why people are so obsessed with this? It's like the modern day fucking fairy tale of just believing that something is possible. You get to be that example of what is possible in the universe, that people who are hopeless romantics or who are desiring, maybe it's not to meet their partner on a plane, but whatever it is, when you least expect it, love can knock on your door. And despite the most difficult circumstances, if it's the right person, you can make it work. And you hear that over and over and everybody preaches about it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But to see a real example of it is like, okay, magic's real.
This is so normal to me that sometimes when I tell a friend of a friend or someone new, we were in a cab actually. This was the funniest thing. I was at a bachelorette 2 weeks ago and I was telling one of the other girls in the cab, like our story. It was a 35-minute cab ride to the Airbnb. And as we were talking, our taxi driver goes, I'm so sorry. This is amazing. This is the best story I've ever heard. And he's like, does this mean you're going to London? And my friend was like, sorry, this is 2 years ago. She's been to London. She's engaged to this man. And he goes, I'm going to cry. And my friend was like, she could see tears streaming down his cheek. And I was like, that's crazy to have a story that has such an impact on people. And I think something that I found really interesting, and maybe I didn't even recognize in myself, is I'm a talker. I know I can talk. But I've got people who are like, how did you even know what to say? How did you work up the courage to talk to him? Talking about shooting your shot a little bit, right? Chances are I was never going to see this man again. You might. And if you do see them again, clearly something you said, something you did was right. They want to see you again. So it's like, you could sit there and never take action and never try, or you strike up a conversation and it actually turns out to be the smallest decision that has the greatest impact on your life. But again, if it works out, they wanted to see you again for a reason. And that goes with friendships, jobs, relationships, not just romantic love interests on airplanes.
I know, I love that. And I want to dive more into that because right now, my day job, I don't even know, and nobody knows this actually. Everybody thinks I have no job on social media. But I'm working in tech sales right now. And so I'm doing like cold calling all day long, which is so fun. I love it. But one of the funniest things about doing that is a lot of people in those roles, they're so afraid. They're like, oh no, I'm going to bother someone and they're going to be mad at me. And what if they tell me to fuck off and blah, blah. And I'm like, who cares? Literally, it doesn't matter. I'm like, this person it's a 1-second interaction. If they're like nobody cares as much as you think they care. And I think that to that point of we hold ourselves back so much and we are the main characters in our own stories, especially you said hi and he was like, ugh, whatever. Like he would never remember, like ever. He would never be like, oh my God, a girl on the plane tried to say hi. Nobody fucking cares. Like it's insignificant or it's like, super significant.
And the thing was, in the beginning, I was like, oh, he's cute. And he had dropped his AirPods and I was like, oh, I can help him. I've been in this situation before. My intention was not to marry the man on the airplane. It was like, oh, strike up a conversation. He's cute. But he didn't even know if I had a boyfriend for the first 2 hours of us talking. It went both ways. Right. Neither of us knew enough about each other, but it's about taking that risk and being like, I'm going to shoot my shot because what's the worst that can happen? They say no.
And one of the biggest things, and I think this is a really good lesson for our generation specifically, because everybody's on the fucking dating apps and this and that, is people used to meet in real life, guys. Like people used to connect when you're walking down the street and you have your headphones on and you're looking down. You're going to miss opportunities and you're going to miss connections. Even just now, I'm in Denver and I was just working at a coffee shop and I was sitting at the counter. I end up striking up a conversation with the guy sitting across from me. We start talking about Odessa and music and blah, blah. And then I ended up booking a meeting with this guy. My job each day is to book one meeting. If I hadn't looked up from what I was doing and talked to this guy, I was like, I just literally got business by looking up and connecting with the person across from me with no intentions. And by the way, like, I love that you said that. Like, he didn't even know if you had a boyfriend the first 2 hours of the flight. It's like, just because somebody smiles at you on the street doesn't mean they want to date you. Just because you say hello to somebody in the subway doesn't mean anything. We are creatures of connection. I just got back from 2 months in New York and I love to play the game of raw dogging the subway. And just
that is such a statement.
But no headphones, no book, no phone, just standing. And I'm looking and I'm like, no one else is doing this. No one else is looking up. No one else. And I think New York is a whole other fucking beast, but I think it's just such a metaphor for what is happening. And most of the time it's this. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm not perfect. Like I definitely am guilty of it, but I'm trying to be more intentional. And when I catch myself doing it, I try to correct. And I think having the awareness of how often we're doing that, because if you got on the plane and were just looking down at your phone and you never looked up and saw the cute guy, you'd be single right now.
Literally, it was to the point that I bought Wi-Fi for that flight. It had been a day and I was like, I need to use my phone. I need to talk to some friends. It has been like such a crap day. And I bought Wi-Fi. If I like actually used that Wi-Fi for what I intended, I would have never been having that conversation with him. Luckily, I had the Wi-Fi and then I was like texting my girlfriends as all of it was going down. I'm like, you guys, he's flirting with me. This man is flirting with me. But it goes back to, if I was preoccupied with what was in front of me aka my phone, I would have missed what was actually in front of me, which was. But back to your point about dating apps, it sparked this for me because I've been getting a lot of questions from people about like meeting people in real life. Like, how do you do it? And I'm like not here to say dating app relationships can't be great. Dating app relationships can happen. I did not have luck on them. I know plenty of people who have. But what I'm finding is I like have more conversations with people is so many people actually meet their partner through these sort of one-off opportunities or experiences to have a connection at a party with mutual friends through a setup of mutual friends. And I think it just shows that it's actually a better system because they're vetted, you get to know them, you like
Yeah.
someone can vouch for them. Not on an airplane. I had to do a lot of research myself for these other
She's
stories.
Googling, she's using her internet to Google.
Not on that flight. When I landed, I did. See, I had put the phone down. I was like, guys, I was texting them live updates and then I went silent on them and they were like, she's disappeared. What happened? No, but like just through friends, you get this like natural vetting and you meet people who are similar minded. I don't know. For me, I feel like if I had met someone through a connection like that, like half of the legwork would have been done. And again, I'm not here to say dating apps don't work. They take work and that's why they're so exhausting is you've got to weed through some rotten eggs to find the good ones. And then you've got to test the good ones and make sure they're actually like a good match. And so my lesson here is talk to the people around you, use your network, meet people, be open-minded, smile at people.
And the energy too. I'm a very energetic person. You might have seen Freddie's adorable, but whoever you end up with, you could see them in real life and their energy is what pulls you in versus if you had seen a photograph of them. And by the way, most guys that aren't influencers or YouTubers don't have great photos of themselves. I just think that there's a lot of missed opportunities in the ability to feel someone's energy and to really connect with them and feel like what they feel like. It's just so different. I feel that way about life in general. I'm like, I just want to be constantly connecting with people and seeing what's going on and living like in the 3D.
I always try to share a word out of, I don't know if you know who Tinks is. She's like she calls herself the big sister of the internet. And in her book, she talks about if she's going on a date with someone who she's been set up with, she tries not to look at a photo because I don't want to create a story in my head about who they are or what I expect them to be, or just brush them off because I don't think they're cute. And Freddie knows this. I'm not disclosing anything that he doesn't already know, but my fiance is objectively good looking. Like there is no question about that. But if we were in a bar on a dating app, he probably wouldn't have been the first person I walked up to in the room. And that was just because of I had a stereotype of what I liked. It was like blonde hair, blue-eyed surfer boys. And same for him. Like I was not his normal type. But when you have these experiences and you get to know someone as a person before just an image or a photo or however else you find out about someone, you actually get to realize, wait, there's some really incredible things about this person and their personality, and we vibe and we match and we have this connection that I would have never expected. So I always try to encourage, again, I'm not here to say Bumble and whatever else shouldn't exist, but it just, you can't create a story off of someone's image. You've got to meet someone and get to know who they are based on a conversation.
And I wonder too, if you're being in a position of being like you're open, but you're not looking. I wonder if going back to shooting your shot, if that made you more like, I'm just going to say what I'm looking for when you guys had that initial conversation. Cause I feel like as I'm getting older, I go through these hiatuses of not dating and blah, blah, but I'm like, at this point, I'm so clear from the get-go of what I'm looking for. And before I think about, is this person good looking? Is this person like all of the qualities on my checklist? I'm like, number one is, first of all, is this person available? And that means like literally and emotionally. But am I clear on what I'm looking for? And do they want what I want? Sounds simple, but it's like we forgot that part of dating. We're all just, oh, we'll see what happens. I don't know. And it's not with you, right? Like I say it all the time. I'm like, okay, not with me, but in general, in this stage of your life, what do you desire in this chapter? Like, what are you desiring? And some people have never asked themselves that question and they're going out on dates. And I'm like, what are you doing then? We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Part of it is like discoverability. I had to go on those days to be like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. To your point of I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't really think I was looking for anything at all, right? But I think I told him on that conversation on the plane was I don't want to play games. And that's what I hated about the app. I was like, everything is about playing games, waiting 3 days to text, waiting an hour when I get the message. I was like, I'm going to be 30 sooner or later. I think we were 27, 28 when I met or when we
She's like, I'm
met.
going to be 30 eventually.
I was like, I'm nearly 30. Like, I'm too old. He's a year older. So I think I was 27 and he was 28 when we met. But I was like, I'm going to be 30. I'm not here to play games. That's very college. That's very like late 20s. Like, I know what I'm looking for at this point. And if you got it, great. And if not, that's okay. Let's move on.
That's what I'm
And
fucking saying.
it takes
And
time, though. I think it's finding that, like you said, like
you
some of your friends
gotta.
don't know. Like, you've got to take the time to figure out what you want to be able to get there.
Oh, for sure. Now let's skip to the section where we talk to younger versions of ourselves and give ourselves the dating advice we wish we had.
Oh, boy.
Because when I was younger, I was like, oh, I don't want to say what I'm looking for because then I'll. No. And in general, it doesn't have to be right now, but in general, if you're looking at the future version of your life and you're like, I want a partner that I can travel with. I would like to have a family. I don't want to have a family. And everything changes. You meet someone, they live in another country. Everything can change on a dime, but you can have a general idea of what you're desiring, what type of person you're desiring, how you would like that person to show up for you. And you're totally right. Like the only way you're going to learn it is by experiencing, or maybe not the only way, but one of the most common ways of learning that is through experiencing the fucking opposite of it. And you're like, okay, I do not want that. That is not what I'm looking for.
It takes the heartbreaks. It takes the being ghosted, right? I'm not saying don't ghost people, but being ghosted to be like, whoa. And I think it was so funny when you're like, I don't want to tell someone, the younger you, I don't want to tell someone what I want because I don't know how they're going to react. It's such a valid thing to not want to do that because you're like, if they don't want the same thing, they're going to end things. But
then good.
Exactly. Let's not waste time here. If you don't want that, I don't want to take time and like away from that, right? I don't want to be doing these things if we're not aligned. But it's so hard to teach our younger selves that. Like
when I was younger, my younger self, I lived, and not even in dating, in every area of my life, I always lived in the energy of I can't wait until. I was like, until middle school. I can't wait until high school. I can't wait until college. Oh my God, I can't wait till I'm a grown up. Blah, blah, blah. Like literally every single stage of my life, I couldn't wait till the next stage. When I got into my early 20s, life was fucking amazing. I was living in LA. I had a great job. I had great friends. I was partying. I was like, life is great. But there was this little piece of me that was like, okay, I can't wait till I have a boyfriend, because when I have a boyfriend, I want to do this and this and this. And like, I want to have all these experiences. And then I was like, why can't I just have those experiences anyway? But I did, and I have, and like now I'm living my life like that. And now I'm traveling the world. I'm having all these incredible experiences. I'm doing everything I want. Is there a part of me that's desiring partnership? Absolutely.
Of course.
Would it be convenient for me to have a partner right now? Absolutely not. I've been going on these, you're gonna die laughing. I have been going on these platonic date-like hangs with guys for the last few months, where it's through mutual setup, or it's a friend of a friend, or it's someone I met at a bar, whatever it is. And I'm fully on what you would think a date is, but we're missing the romantic elements of it, which is, again, going back to a younger version of me, there was only the romantic elements of it. So now I'm meeting up with guys and having like hours and hours of conversation and then giving them a hug goodbye and never seeing them again.
It fills the cup. It teaches a lesson.
Totally. But
and yeah, maybe it's a work meeting. Maybe it comes up as a work.
I know. I keep saying I'm going on networking hang date things. Like I don't know what this is. But I'm like, I don't. But even in these connections, I'm like, hey, I want to introduce you to so and so. I think you guys have a lot in common. She sent me a photo of him, and I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in him, but I'm interested in exploring this connection, not necessarily romantically, just in general. And going back to our point of like taking off your earplugs and just connecting with people, it doesn't have to always be romantic. I'll tell you one of the most interesting aha moments I had about dating. I have a really high caliber for relationships in my life, like friendships, platonic relationships. The bar is fucking high. I'm great. I'm fun. I'm a good friend. I am. You are. It just is. I can't be friends with everyone. So the barrier to entry of truly being in my inner circle is fucking high. And I realized I did not have the same barrier to entry when it came to guys that I dated, because my main criteria was, are they hot? And if they were hot, nothing else mattered.
I feel like, again, this goes back to what I was saying about the dating apps and like getting a photo of someone from a friend. It's like, and we can't help ourselves, but the first thing you're going to do is look at, are they hot? And if they're hot, we just give them a beautiful personality. We build a narrative in our heads to say, this person is hot, so they must be a good person. And the reality is, most of the ones that are hot are not nice guys anyway. They're not the ones that are going to give us what we're looking for. And then you end up chasing this dream that you've built. And you're like, why isn't he texting me back? Because he was never a nice guy. He was just hot.
Yeah. I read something where it was like, when somebody shows you who they are, listen to them, right? And paying attention to actions, because the actions, not the narrative of your potential. I continuously dated potential in guys. I would create this version of them in my head, and I'm like, oh, they're this, they're that, but there was zero evidence that they were this person that I created for them. And their actions again and again, like the ghosting and the taking a long time to text and not making time and this and that. And you excuse away the behavior. Oh, no, it's okay because
this is how it is.
Oh, it's okay.
This is the game we play.
And it's no. I love in your TikTok, you're like, if he wanted to, he would.
And it's so funny. I was just about to say that, but guys are pretty straightforward creatures. They will tell you how they feel. If they like you, you will know. If they like you for the sex, you will also know. But like you said, it is right in front of you. When someone's telling you and showing you who they are, like it's on you to be able to be like, okay, I can read through the lines and figure out what this is.
Yeah, thank you for showing me who you are. And to each his own, nothing good, bad, wrong, whatever. But again, if you're continuing to indulge that behavior, and also your behavior and your responses to that behavior is reinforcing it. You're reinforcing like, yes, I'm okay with you treating me this way. Yes, that's acceptable because I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep coming back. Oh, you're going to booty call me in the middle of the night. Yeah, sure. No problem. Oh, and again, I think these are things that like our early 20 selves had to go through. Like we had to do it all. But it's funny looking back at things that I did and behaviors I tolerated back then that now immediately would be a no. Immediate.
And again, that's the maturity and the growth that you've got to go through those lessons to reach that point. And like I said earlier, I had to go through all of that to be the person I am today because I had standards and expectations when I met Freddie of what I was looking for. And thank God he met them, right? Like he was the person that actually stepped in and checked all the boxes. But it wouldn't have been without 24-year-old Megan, 25, however old I was, like having those experiences.
So wild. Well, I guess as we're nearing the end here, is there anything, whether it's in relationship, it's in life, it's in pursuing grad school, making big radical changes in their life, like is there any advice that you would give people listening to this in the regards of taking that aligned action towards your dreams?
Yeah, I feel like I just had this epiphany of what I wanted to say, and I'm really excited.
Yay!
I want to say yes to opportunities because if you don't, somebody else will. And I think that just goes in all of those like buckets that we've talked about. But if you don't talk to that guy, someone else will. If you don't step up for that job, someone else will. And like rejection is scary. None of us want that. None of us like that. But like we talked about, people forget, people move on. And frankly, if they come back, it's because something you did or said was right. I don't know. Life's too short not to take those chances.
I love that. Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I talk about on almost every single episode is like that fear is always going to be there, right? You're always going to have that nervousness, that fear of, oh no, but it's feel the fear and do it anyway. That's my mantra right now.
I love that. Anyway. I love that.
Yeah. Don't wait for it to dissipate. Just be like, oh, yeah, I'm scared. All right. For me now, when people say things and I'm like, oh my God, that's really scary. In my brain, I go, okay, that means I have to do it.
I was going to say, I feel like for me, so much of this yes mentality came from do it for the story. And it was like silly things, right? It could be out like, should we bring a bottle of wine to the beach? Like, yeah, let's do it for the story. And saying yes presents opportunities and experiences that we're shutting ourselves off from by saying no. So I love feel the fear and do it anyway. That is amazing. I'm going to have to take that to heart.
Yeah. One of my last episodes with my friend Dana, we did a whole episode on saying yes to life. And it was so in line with this conversation of we were just like, her and I both had these like wild adventures and these crazy things happen and people
you do, yeah.
wild, like insane. But people are always asking, they're like, how, what? And I'm like, and I had an epiphany recently too. And I was like, okay, I know why, I know how. It's because I say yes to things that most people would say no to.
100%.
Like most people be like, even you, like you saying yes to letting this man sit next to you on the plane, you saying yes to booking that flight, you saying yes to trying long distance, you saying yes to all the things that you said yes to along the way. I'm sure other people would be like, rational brain says that's not a good idea.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my heart broken. No, thank you. And you like logic all of these things away versus dropping into your body, like dropping into your heart and being like, all right, this is a fucking risk. I'm gonna do it anyway.
But it's a story. Do it for the story. I think you're so right. And I think as you were saying that, it's like saying no cuts off the conversation. The story ends there. When you say no, that is the end of whatever was going to potentially happen. But when you say yes, yes, there's scary, yes, there's risk, but there is a story. And that is so fun.
Yeah, and then you might get married to your plane romance.
We'll give him a little, there he is. Yay.
Oh, hang on. Oh, Megan, this was so fun. I literally feel like we could talk for hours also because we haven't seen each other in years.
But we will catch up in person soon. Hopefully, we'll
know,
get you back in the ocean.
Oh my God. I know my surfboard's at Nicole's house. I'm like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I think about what you guys took me out to and what I said yes to and going, and I'm like, yo, that's scary.
This conversation would never be happening if you didn't say yes.
It's true. We would have never met. We would have never been friends. I would have never connected with you guys like this. You're totally right. I would have never heard your story. You would have never been on my podcast.
It all worked out the way it's meant to. I love it.
So perfect. Thank you so much. I am going to drop Megan's Instagram and TikTok. Those are the best ways to connect with you.
Yes.
Down below.
Yeah, I will be sharing more of my story. We'll be sharing more updates to our life, where we're living, wedding planning, and all of that. That's what I was going to say is the only updates I have are if you care more to know about where we end up and what we're doing and where we're getting married, you can follow along. Otherwise, you can slide in my DMs for all things relationship advice. I'm happy to help because I have been there. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And good luck with everything. And we can't wait to hear where you guys end up living.
Thank you.